Welcome to Sparks of History. We are very pleased and honored to have with us today Rabbi Yosef Gavriel Bechhofer. Rabbi Bechhofer is an acclaimed and popular lecturer, maggid shiur, and rabbinical figure currently serving at Congregation Anshei Palisades. Additionally, Rabbi Bechhofer is a prolific author, and his writings include the Contemporary Eruv, Eruvin in Modern Metropolitan Areas. Thank you so much, Rabbi Bechhofer, for being with us today. We appreciate it very much.
Pleasure.
Okay, we'll get right to it. What exactly is the War of Gog and Magog? How does it fit in with the historical four kingdoms, Babylon, Persia, Greece, and Rome? And should this end of days topic be part of our conversation today?
I think you might be disappointed with my answer. My answer is any nevuah of Puranus has no guarantee that it's ever going to happen, meaning any prophecy which depicts negative events, we pray will not happen, and we don't necessarily anticipate will happen. Yes, it's true that the Gemara talks about, in Sanhedrin, talks about the Chevnei Moshiach, the birth pangs Moshiach, and Yeseh B'lo Achminei, that should come, and I shouldn't be around to witness it. But in fact, as a nevuah of Puranus, we hope it doesn't happen. And the problem with trying to define what is a fulfillment of the Puranus, of negative nevuah, is many authorities throughout history have attempted to define the war of their times as the war of Gog and Magog. Try to find traces and say World War II or the 1973 war or whatever war as the war of Gog and Magog, and it's impossible for us to know because none of these wars which took place fulfilled the description in the Nevi'im of a war which for 7 years they're going to use the remnants of the war of the weapons in order to fuel their homes. So I don't think Gog and Magog is something which we can understand, and it's certainly something we don't want. It's not necessarily something which is going to take place. Obviously, to the opinions that it does take place, it's associated with Megiddo. It's going to take place in Megiddo. That's why it's called Armageddon. And that's going to be the final battle, the clash of the forces of wherever the Gog and Magog are. And there are many different theories. But again, I don't think it's worthwhile at all trying to identify and figure out what exactly everything represents.
Okay, well, why has it caught the imagination of people? I mean, people talk about Gog and Magog, like it's and the whole idea of, as you mentioned before, of Bechhofer, you don't want to be around when it happens. I mean, it's.
I think it makes people feel. I don't blame them. Feel that there's a meaning for the suffering and travails which we undergo in this in the times of war and the times of tragedy and violence. And I'm very sympathetic to that desire to find ultimate meaning in things which before Am Yisrael. I don't think we have the capacity to understand it that way, but obviously it's comforting to people to see. Well, again, taking an example, World War II, that this was meaningful because it was Gog and Magog and the imminent Geula will come afterwards.
Is it something that's perhaps the approach that you've just articulated, is that coming also from a place of not just the uncertainty of it, but perhaps the danger in overemphasizing it? Is that something that you would find in Jewish history in false messianic periods where people would, again, cataclysmic events?
Yes, I think that's a very good point. I think Shabtai Tzvi came in the heels of the Chmielnicki pogroms in 1648, 1649, and that was Am Yisrael was right at that point for the picking. The Shabtai Tzvi to come along and say, okay, that was Gog and Magog. Now here we are, and I'm bringing the Geula. So it is very convenient for false messiahs to have a war they can identify as Gog and Magog. The Rambam writes the end of Hilchos Malach is in Hilchos Malachim, I believe. No, Hilchos Tshuva. No, Hilchos Malach. He says that none of us can know ahead of time how these things will pan out, and everything which is said is, he doesn't say this, but I'm paraphrasing, to be taken with a grain of salt, much as metaphorical. So it's very, very dangerous for somebody to say with authority that they know that this is something which is, this is Gog and Magog. How many years afterwards Mashiach will come? Many people have tried this and it's come to naught. And this is why the Gemara says that there's a problem of mechashvei kitzim, people who try to determine when the Gula is going to come. And the Gemara says that Shlosha Dvarim Boim Behesach Hadas. The one of the things which comes Behesach Hadas is Mashiach. When people focus on trying to bring Mashiach, so then that's not the way to bring Mashiach. Not everybody agrees that that Gemara is applicable in our day and age. But Tzadok HaKohen and others say that, that was once upon a time. Now that we're close to Mashiach, one can be involved in trying to bring Mashiach more directly. But in the final analysis, I don't know how productive it is.
What does it mean to bring Mashiach? We sing to the kids, we want Mashiach now. We sing all kinds of songs, whether you're a Chabadnik or not a Chabadnik. And we long for Mashiach every day. What does it mean to bring Mashiach?
So Reb Tzadok, I like quoting Reb Tzadok on this to avoid quoting Chabad, not because I have anything against quoting Chabad, but because most people associate this only with Chabad. But Reb Tzadok says that when it says by the Ma'apilim, Moshe Rabbeinu said to the people who tried to go up to Eretz Yisrael after the Chet HaMeraglim in Parsha Shlach, he said, "V'hi lo titzlach." This is not going to be successful. So Tzadok says, "He lo titzlach." Now it's not successful, but it's going to be successful at some point in history. And as it explains, the Gemara in Sotah, where it says that chutzpah yaska b'ikbasod Mashiach. There's going to be a lot of chutzpah at the time of Mashiach. Not just that it's a negative. There's going to be a lot of chutzpah in the world. But rather, it's the time to be chutzpahdik towards HaKadosh Baruch Hu and demand Mashiach. And that's how this notion of we want Mashiach now comes about, because now is the time when chutzpah yaska, he titzlach, and Mashiach will come. I think it's a very Hasidic approach in general, not just one which is unique to Lubavitch, although Lubavitch takes it to an extreme.
Okay. Shifting gears just a bit, the Arab-Israel conflict, is that conflict a religious conflict primarily? And is it linked? Can we link it to the conflict between Yitzhak and Yishmael?
I don't think I would associate directly with Yitzhak and Yishmael, but I think that there is this notion of Yishmael, the Yishmael, which I heard once from another Gadol. I think there are Kabbalistic sources for this, that they have a koyach of tefillah, and that koyach of tefillah is manifest in their davening 5 times a day. I'm guessing, although perhaps we shouldn't say this, that they probably don't talk in their mosques the same way people talk in shuls either. And so they
didn't take that from Yom Kippur, correct? Is there any?
I don't think so. I've heard they took it from Yom Kippur. I don't think there's any hint of that.
Right. Okay.
Yes. But the idea of tefillah is very strong in Islam, and I think that sense there is a spiritual war between us and them, because we know tefillah. Gemara, the Ein Yaakov brings down in brachas. It's not the Gemara itself, but Ein Yaakov, Gana bapunda the machtarto rachmana kari. The Gana, when he comes to steal, comes to burgle a house, so he davens to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And the implication of the Gemara is that his tefillah works because it's mamish lishma and with great kavanah. So tefillah, which has powerful kavanah, even though it's the Gana of davening for success in his gneva, has a power to it. So I think there is a spiritual power which Yishmael has, which we have to combat, and with our spiritual power as well.
Okay. And can we link the current Arab population to Yishmael? I mean, we kind of make that leap. Where does that leap come from? Because they've adopted Yishmael as their forefather?
I think so. I think it's very similar to the association of Christianity with Edom, which is actually more tenuous than the association of Yishmael with the Muslims, at least the same geographical location. But obviously Chazal gave us this permission to associate modern day nations with ancient antecedents. They made these connections. So since this is something which is accepted throughout the Jewish world and throughout the Jewish literature, so I think that there's a validity to it.
Okay.
Can I demonstrate it definitively? No, but it seems to be that that's the way people express themselves. There must be something to it.
Okay. So what the Rav is saying is that a clear antidote to the situation is tefillah, and a strengthening in our tefillah would be the appropriate antidote
Yes,
among other solutions.
Right. I think some people suggested, and my shul, we also suggested, with some degree of success, being more meticulous in keeping the Tosfos Yontif's remedy for Xeris Tachlatat, which was the being more strict about not talking in shul, and so that certainly can help that we have more respect and take our tefillah more seriously.
Here in Israel, there has been a sense of unity since Simchas Torah on October 7th. Different sectors of the population that really were speaking above each other or kind of talking to each other now. What does unity, what does achdut really mean in these times? What's the spiritual power of achdut? And what can be done, what should be done to achieve a real achdut today among the Jewish people?
Well, if you ask me, the first thing to do would be to get rid of religious parties. Because I think that they are extremely divisive and create tremendous problems. It actually was
some would say get rid of all parties, but okay.
Yeah, that's true. We could. As it actually was in the Jewish Observer, I think many years ago, there was a debate between Professor Leo Levy Olav Shalom and Rabbi Elias Olav Shalom about this very point, whether the Aguda should be a separate party or should not be a separate party. So I'm on the side of Professor Levy that having religious parties seems to be a negative thing. But we know that the paradigm is, it tells us that the Mimei Achov, even the so as opposed to May David when they went to Milchama, and they're Neiflim, even though they were of the Hashem. So then the Chazal tell us that the achdus of Achov, days of Achov, prevented casualties, whereas the divisiveness in the days of David HaMelech led to casualties. So I think it means for us that everybody should do tshuva. We wish everybody should do tshuva, but to accept Am Yisrael B'Asher Hu Sham and try and love them as they are. And I think that this is what I tell people. I think that you see in the people who were at, let's say, the music festival on October 7th, many of them say that as they thought they were going to die, they started saying Shema Yisrael. You see that we think of these people with all their tattoos and their crazy hair and all that kind of stuff as being perhaps michutz lamachaneh. But when push comes to shove, there's this intrinsic pinteleid, and that deserves our respect and our love and a sense of affinity. I think that the definition of achdus in this respect is to try and transcend the differences which we have, and even though we know that the differences are based on what we fully believe to be what's right and what's wrong, that if days of Achav being the getting there with Oivdei Avodah Zarah was a positive thing, Alachas Kama V'Kama with these people who, and the final analysis, will resort to Shema Yisrael at the very last moment.
Any final thoughts as you look at the situation today, whether it's in Eretz Yisrael or the whole situation in America? There's a sense here in Israel that people are really afraid in America today. They're frightened. There's uncertainty. Your perspective on the whole event?
I want to say one thing before I give a more substantial answer.
Yes.
Which is that the Israelis always get annoyed at us Americans when we express opinions what goes on in Israel. And they generally say to us, you have no right to express an opinion because you're in Chutz La'aretz and either you don't understand or you don't know or it doesn't concern you. I find that to be insulting. If a person knows about, reads about a situation, is concerned about a situation, they should be allowed to express an opinion wherever they are. I would say that the ironic thing is that Israelis come and they tell people in Chutz La'aretz, well, you're in the first dawn of the new Holocaust, and you better move to Israel because otherwise you're going to all be swept away. I live in Muncie, so I can't really say how bad it is out there because in Muncie, the put it metaphorically, the Goyim are the persecuted minority, not the Jews. So we don't have that kind of exposure here. But I think, and I teach Holocaust. It's one of the things I teach. And
where does the Rav teach that? Where do you teach that?
I teach in the afternoons in a school called the YBH in Passaic, and I teach 8th grade Historia, and so we're doing now the Holocaust and 1930 specifically, and it was a lot worse in the 1930s than it is today. There's no real comparison. Now, is it someday going to happen? Chas v'shalom, perhaps it will, but we're not holding there anywhere near there at this point. So I think that I don't feel that insecurity. Again, I live in an insulated society, but I understand that Golus is temporary. Golus is not permanent. We never know what's going to happen next. But at this point, I think there is still a significant role for American Orthodox Jewry to play in America, which it will not play in Israel. Because when you get to Israel, you have to take sides in a polarized society, which you don't have to do in America.
Okay.
And that is a very big enough. If I came to Israel, I would have to choose a sector of society, which I would not be completely comfortable with, no matter which one it was. In America, I don't have that issue, for better or for worse.
Any other final thoughts on this whole subject?
If I may, I would like to say that I take exception to some of the thoughts which were expressed by some people who are understood to be Gedolei Yisrael in some sense, who said some very strange things, like not to daven for the soldiers, to daven just for Lomdei Torah, not to give money to other causes except for Talmud Torah. These are all very strange statements which would never have heard in prior generations. It's very concerning to me. I don't know where these statements come from, and I'm afraid of the repercussions. Either way, either they'll have divisive repercussions, or it'll lead, as I think it will, to less respect for Gedolei Torah, which is also a tragedy.
Well, hopefully that will not occur, and we'll have a better understanding of what was meant by that, et cetera, et cetera. Again, Rabbi Bechhofer, thank you so much for your time today. We tried to pack a lot of heavy topics in, and I appreciate your time today. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.